Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Business in Calgary podcast. I'm your host, Oliver Basner, and pretty excited to have Chris Kerr with me today. He's the founder and the president of XA Security. And Chris was selected by Business in Calgary as one of the 2024 Leader Awards. So, first of all, congratulations on winning that award. I was there that evening. It was probably a great honor.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me today. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So let's jump right in. So the judges said that the characteristics that stood out were creativity, imagination, and a commitment to the community. Leaders were committed to making our community a stronger, healthier, and more vibrant place. Talk to us a little bit about what XA Security is doing that contributed to you being selected.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think when I think about what we're doing in the community, it's been challenging for me over the years to define what exactly that means. I think there's a perception of, are your team going out and doing soup kitchens? Are we making financial donations to
Yeah.
things, or how are we, overall building community? And it's difficult as a small business, and especially one that, has gone through, big impacts with COVID and that kind of thing, on how we can do good by people and treat people well and look at community building in that sense. How can we take care of people that work for us and the people that we serve first, and kind of like, how can we go above and beyond? How can we take a haircut on a margin to pay better? How can we
Right.
do that kind of stuff to help make people more whole, to give them the capacity, to go out and do more in the community? So I think, we're very aspirational in that sense, that we have, through our planning with implementing EOS in the last few years,
Yeah.
to help us get through COVID. It's really changed our business and given us more of a North Star on what are our priorities as we, pursue growth. What are those key elements of, how EOS defines it, is what does it look like? And one of our evergreen things in there is to make the world a better place. And so it's very open-ended for us in terms of giving our people freedom to consider, how are we making things better around us today, so that
Right.
we can enable change on a more daily basis, if that
Right.
makes sense. So I think as we pursue our growth goals and we get to a point in the business where we can budget meaningful financial contributions, the core of it is that we really want to surround ourselves with people that want to do good
Right.
and right.
How do you do that? I mean, you've got over 900 people. You've grown over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, it's great to have that, and I think you have that North Star, but how do you get 900 people to buy in on that? And, the other thing I noticed was, you prioritize empathy, integrity, and proactive risk reduction as well. And, 900 people to have empathy and to make sure they're reducing the risk when you're providing security for whatever you're doing, whether it's an event or the
Yeah.
other things that you do.
One of the smart police officer here in Calgary that's
Yeah.
now retired, that worked with the public safety unit, once I was standing beside him and we were talking about our teams, and he made this comment I've never forgotten, which is, hey, we all have our bottom 10%, right? And so I think the answer is that we don't always get it right. We don't
Right.
hit it 100% of the time. It's to coin an old luxury car brand tagline, it's the relentless pursuit of perfection and never quite
Right.
getting there.
Right.
Right. So it's very, very challenging.
So it's
is
a
the
so
answer.
it's a journey, not a
It's
destination.
just it's just a perpetual goal.
Yeah.
And it's aspirational to hit that every time. And so the thing about the values is that it was another EOS thing for us. Where it came from was, it's not aspirational. We looked at a subset of our best people and evaluated all the
Right.
common traits they shared, and that gave us the definition of our value set. And so it helped us to then model
Right.
our hiring against the best people we had when we did that exercise. And so the answer is, it's really hard with that number of people. Sometimes we hire people so quickly on a temporary seasonal basis to
Right.
service, Stampede and major events in town. and then they're gone. And sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't make it.
Right.
And so it's been very hard for us to figure out how to model a flash kind of screening process. We do group screening, we do all sorts of things to try and drill down quickly to, do you get it? Like, do you know what we're doing here? Do you want to be here? This is what it is. We're very transparent about it, and we help, and that helps us get that 10% to a true 10.
Right.
It's been 30, it's been 40 for us,
Right.
right? And so there's stumbling blocks along the way. It's never.
And I
it's
think
never
everybody
done.
listening agrees with you. There's stumbling blocks along the way. You know, it's interesting because, you know, you do provide security for events, and you know, Stampede's coming up, right?
Yeah.
And you know, keeping performers safe and keeping attendees safe, and you're hiring, you know, like you said, sometimes transient people, right, to help with setup and all those things. So how do you get them? You know, up, running, trained? Because that's a challenge in every business. How do you get them up, running, and trained to a point where they're actually able to function? Because you hire them today, and then they might not be around again, as you said, tomorrow, right? Like,
Yeah.
what's that process? You must have a secret sauce here to get them up and trained.
It's no secret sauce. I mean, you do the best you can to get them through a meaningful, call it basic training, right? You know, we're a licensed business, so
Yeah.
there's a minimum standard. Granted, I will say it's a fairly minimum standard to get a license in Alberta as a security guard. But one of those things is you have to pass a clearance and jump through some hoops and show some commitment, right?
Right.
So out of the gate, you know, that's done a little bit of the work. The bulk of the heavy lifting is teaching people how we do things here. It's really it's helping people unlearn some things if they want to work with us. And the way
Right.
that we do that is I'm ultra honest with people, and I don't do the interviews that much these days, but when I sit in on them and when I do them, it's pretty to the point of, hey, we're not for everyone. Right, we're not for everyone on a customer facing level, and we're not for everyone on an employee facing level. Here's what we are about here.
Right.
And we try to hit it off on that note. So we help people get quickly to a decision of, like, this is not just another mail it in type place. We're doing work that matters here. We've lost sight of that over the years, right? When we're dealing with crisis through COVID, and our business really shifted away from entertainment being the only thing we did into what we do now, it was very, very challenging in those years to do everything.
Of course.
Right? So there's been compromises along the way, but I think where we've seen the most success lately is by really getting to the point with people that walk in the door and go, listen, here are the expectations. It's not about you do this or you're in trouble. People don't get in trouble here. We sit down and we have conversations about, this is why we need things done a certain way. Here's the why behind it. Because if you're 10 minutes late for something at a major event or at a commercial building or a construction site, that could be the 10 minutes someone needed you to call 911 that had a life-threatening injury.
Right.
It could have been the difference of equipment getting stolen that meant a show could happen or not happen that night. So our rules aren't in place because it helps our pocketbooks. They're in place because people depend on us to keep things safe, to keep them safe. And so we've really shifted our focus now to helping people that come through the doors understand that, because we're trying to build a team of A players, and we're playing in a market that's just a race to the bottom as far as pricing goes. So it's these opposing forces that you have to navigate when you're interviewing people that have moved through organizations that prioritize things differently.
Right.
Is adjusting them to go, hey, I know that, you know, it's a similar price point in terms of wage, but the standards here are different. But here's what it means if we accomplish our goals, right?
I love what you said there about the why, because so often, especially as a company grows, like senior management understands the why, but somewhere along the line in some organizations, I've noticed that, you know, by the time it gets to the front line, they forget the why part. Why are you even here, right?
Yeah.
Why do we do what we do? Why is it so important? And the way you explain it to them is, yeah, that 10 minutes somebody might have needed you, right?
Yeah.
They might have needed a 911 call. They might have needed you to protect them, and that gives them now a sense of purpose and a sense of why they're even there. And it does matter that I show up on time for work, right?
Well, for sure. And the empathy piece that's the empathy piece because, really just in its simplest form, it's just put yourself in the other side's shoes, right?
Yeah.
That's all it is. So consider yourself as the customer. Consider that it's your restaurant, that's had break-ins every night and
Right.
they need someone there, or someone needs a walk to their car,
Yeah.
and or a walk to the train station. They got to catch that last train. They're depending on us.
Yeah, that'll
In
be,
those moments,
that'll
right?
be my daughter this Stampede, right?
100%,
First
my
time at
daughter,
the Stampede,
right?
right? She needs that walk to
Yeah.
the car, to the Uber, to whatever,
Yeah.
right?
People need to
get home.
associate our team with safety
Yeah.
and help, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Let's sort of change directions just for a moment, because I mean, I'm sure you've got dozens, if not more, stories of things that you've had to deal with, your teams have had to deal with. But what I really like, and I saw it when I did the research about your company, is you teach them how to de-escalate a situation, right? And I really believe that's a tool our listeners could benefit from, because de-escalation isn't just about that customer screaming at you in front of you. De-escalation can be about the spouse that's mad or upset, or the child that's having a traumatic event. Like, that's a tool that anybody can use, right? Beyond business. Like, what are some of those little nuggets that you could maybe give to de-escalate a situation when somebody's literally maybe not in their right mind in the moment?
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer. I've thought about this a lot over the years, because I don't think it was necessarily something intentional for me. I think for me in the early years, I just had an approach of, I'll go talk to them. I'll see if I can talk
Right.
this down, right? And it translated into the core kind of fundamental of the business. It's if you ask my wife Beth, she would tell you, I need help de-escalating, right? And I think that's part of the answer, is that it requires a ton of effort. It requires a ton of awareness about how you handle things. I think it's having supportive partners helpful, having supportive people around you trust that can help you see you from another lens,
Right.
is part of it, right? And I think the other part of it is just that we don't choose violence. Like, we choose not violence, right? The origin of it for us was when I was a university student when I started the company, right, just out of university, and I did a stint at Mac Hall and the Students' Union there as the VP events, and I was just looking at this environment as, okay, I'm here as a student. This is supposed to be a student venue, welcoming students in. Students
Right.
are my age, my people at the time, and they're not bad people. They're having some drinks. Maybe they walked out of a licensed zone, which is a whole other diatribe I could get into into
Right.
liquor law.
Right.
But I cross an imaginary line, and someone chooses violence, as the solution versus, oh, hey, did you know you can't cross that line, right? And so I always looked at it like that, and I think that I started to realize that worked. I remember specifically one of the first security shows we ever did at the Saddle Dome was Motley Crue in '05. And there was this guy on the railing, kind of on stage right over the Vaughn, just annoying everybody around him, but he was on that last row above where people walk out under him, and he's rattling this rail back and forth like crazy, just causing a ruckus. And I went up there and I just climbed up there and I was like, bro, hey, look around. Like, these people, they're also here, big fans, trying
Right.
to enjoy the show, right?
Right.
I get it. You're having a great time, but like, you're sharing the space.
Yeah.
He just was in the moment, right? He was just wrapped up in the moment. He wasn't a bad guy. He was like, oh my God, oh yeah, I'm so sorry. And then he's back doing his thing and everybody's happy, right? So I think for me, when I look back on those kind of early experiences that I think guided how we train the team, it's really rooted more in why. It's just explain. People want to know why. They want to know why they're getting kicked out. They want to know why it's time for the night to be over.
Absolutely.
Right? And it doesn't mean that we de-escalate things all the time and you get to stay. We will help you leave, if it's time to leave.
Yeah.
But the goal is that you have a smile on your face, you get it. We've had a fun conversation along the way and traded some stories. But hey, we're gonna help you get home safe. How'd you get here? Do you have an Uber? Whatever, right? And we build a relationship with these people. That's the key. Is you build a relationship and you see humanity, and then just talk to people like they're normal people. Everyone's just a person at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's interesting as I'm listening to talk, because I've got 5 kids myself, 4 of them adults and one's at home, who's in her teens, and as I'm hearing you talk, that's a similar strategy that if you take any parenting courses, that they give you, right, is communicate, stay calm, right? Because if you're losing your mind while your kids are losing their mind or having a temper tantrum, it doesn't work. It never works, right?
Yeah,
one of you better be calm in this situation. And so to de-escalate, I'm sure, at a concert or at a fun event or somebody's had too many drinks, one of you better stay calm.
It's funny because I was 10 years into the business before I had kids. And you're 100% on the money. Is that one of the fundamental de-escalation principles of parenting is give your child a binary choice. Give them a choice, right? If you do this can happen,
right?
Or if you choose this will happen, right? And kids are very good at going, I opt for the less bad one, right? And you realize that principle applies to all of us as adults, and all of us just want choice.
Right.
No one likes being told what to do. People want choices, right? So it's so funny, the similarities of parenting to de-escalating. And if you ever go to therapy, or if you ever go to couples counseling, if you're fortunate, and have access to that, you start to stitch it all together, right? And that it's about choices. It's about putting yourself in the other person's shoe. It's about saying, hey, I acknowledge your feelings.
Yeah.
I can see you're upset. I get it. I would be upset too.
And communicating.
I don't want to be the guy, to toss you out. But listen, there's 2 ways this can go. For sure it's happening. But I would prefer to do it this way, and we can have a good time, and you can come back one day and we'll help you get home safe.
Right.
So
yeah, and do they normally pick the easier option, or
almost always?
Yeah.
And it's funny because we've taken criticism in the industry over the years for, we used to be called hands off, and people would say, well, those guys never go hands on, and we've never allowed our staff to carry handcuffs. It's a thing we don't carry.
Right.
We at least on the entertainment side of things, and where we spent most of our life, because we're in environments where there's lots of good support and that kind of thing. But ultimately, in those years, I've polled the staff a number of times and gone through the reports. I cannot find one where I say I wish we would have had handcuffs that one time, right? The team has always managed to celebrate the de-escalation, right? To celebrate how many people we don't have to call the police for.
Right.
We don't want to burden the police. They have enough to do. Their budget is tight enough, right? If we can minimize that, and it's real simple stuff, right? It's just don't choose violence. Don't choose amping it up. And when you get alcohol in the mix, you got to make different choices. You got to consider that affects how people behave, right?
For sure it does.
You have to weigh all those different variables when you're trying to bring the temperature down.
Now, and that's some great advice. So thank you for that. I'm sure people are getting some nuggets about their kids as well right now. Not just adult conversations or employee conversations.
Yeah.
You've grown to over 900 employees. Some of them full time, some of them casual. Over the 20 years. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of growth. Things would have been tough along the way. Like what were some of those challenges? How do you overcome those challenges when all of a sudden it's like, oh man, I didn't see that coming? Like what kept you in the game? Because, we know the success rate of a new company is, 80% of them fail in the first 5 years. And then of that 20% that's left, another 80% fail in the next 5 years. So by the time we get to 15 years, less than 3% are standing. You're part of that 3%. So how did you get through those tough times? Like somebody who's now, at that 5-year mark going, man, I don't know if I can keep going, or 10 years, and it's been a struggle. Like, what did you do?
I know, I think the answer is that I've always liked what I've done. And I think I'm guilty of having this accidental business that me and a couple of guys started one day going, how hard could this be? Like, we have this problem that's not getting answered by the vendor in place at the moment. We were young concert producers and learning the concert business,
And being naive at the time can help you sometimes.
Like, honestly, right? I'm tired of getting yelled at by tour managers because they ask for 12 people and there's 6, and I'll find 12. I'll call 12. I know 12 people.
Right.
And that's how it started. And then you blink and it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. But along the way, it was very run off the side of my desk for those early years. It was really small. We ran small teams, but I was out there putting shows on, and we kind of had this fun thing going, and we expanded into security a year later. And so we were just a part of a bigger movement, I think, that allowed us to continue to latch on to that growing kind of music festival scene and the rise in dance music and all of that stuff in the early 2000s that we were able to be a part of. And so it helped us grow. It helped us very easily organically grow in those days by virtue of the other work I was doing as a producer and kind of servicing my own projects in a lot of ways, and the projects of my partners. So then when you start getting intentional about the business and start trying to run it as a business, I think is when it starts to get challenging. And I think, back to the question, it's how do we do it? I rarely focus on the money. Right. I think success is so subjective on how you measure success, and I think for us and me and the team, it was always about, it was successful if people were treated well and we were having a good time and we made some money.
Right.
But we were doing some good things out there and having fun and, paying the bills and having a good time. Right. It was really the priority. And then along the way, I started to take it more seriously. And it was around the time that there was an accident at Big Valley Jamboree. They had a windstorm that brought the stage down.
Yeah.
There was, there was a lot of property damage, and there was.
I was there.
Were you there?
I was
there.
Our
team was there that year. And it was, and I kind of walked away from that going, wow, like we've been having a great time doing concerts, but it just got real for me in that moment, and it hit me, the responsibility that we carried at that point. So again, no, not about money anymore. It's now about, we need to decide what we're doing here, and are we going to double down on making sure we really take this seriously and get better at this? How do we then start to balance that with cost and finding better people and delivering on a higher standard, and so that would have introduced the first kind of like challenges in the business. Our first real growth point was right around then, when music festivals were getting big and we started putting teams of a couple hundred out at a time. And that was hard. And then so you hit cash flow challenges then. You have big invoices going out you're not used to, and you pay people quickly and you collect slowly, and I think you just focus on the greater prize, and you focus on the people. And for me, it's not been about me. It's been about the effort that others have put in to get us here. Right. It's like I owe it to my team. Like I have people that are still with me at 20 years. It's those guys and their efforts that get you through it, right? For me, right? And it's just more interesting to build a community of people that solve problems and then hopefully profit than it is to build something centered around profit because I just think it changes the type of emotion that gets injected into your problem solving, right? It's not,
I
doesn't
agree.
remove the emotion, just
Yeah.
it's different emotion.
I agree, and the other thing it does is profit or money isn't always going to keep you going when the going gets tough,
No,
right? Because all of a sudden there is no money because maybe, like you said, you've paid out but you haven't collected, and so what's the bigger why? What's the bigger reason for actually being there? Otherwise, you're like every other business that potentially could shut down and say, you know what, this is too hard.
it's too hard.
Yeah.
We don't make widgets anymore or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's ingrained in the fact that the people that I've managed to convince to come along on this ride over the years share a common goal of solving complicated problems and treating people differently,
Yeah.
and they just like it. And I try really hard to have an environment where they can do those things and be celebrated for it. And I think it's just the most interesting thing is navigating problems when you have a team that rallies in the most high pressure of situations, right? And so I think inherently the product that we've been delivering all of these years is ultimately, calming chaos or reducing crisis or managing crisis. And so when we have our own internal crisis, I think we look at it, a lot more diluted, perhaps, or perhaps that's just me, because I have the perspective of just dealing with so many other problems that we're paid to deal with.
Yeah.
That when it comes to our own internal ones, it's just another issue on the board that needs a discussion and a solution, right? So,
Well, and it sounds like you've surrounded yourself with enough people with enough brain power. You don't need all the solutions. You just need people there to help find the solutions.
yeah, and to be clear, it's not easy today. COVID changed us. It was
It did,
we
absolutely.
were, something you mentioned earlier was, forecasting or predictability, and I never saw that coming. I was wrapped up in the concert business mentality of people will always find the money to go see their favorite band. We are a recession resistant business in
Right.
that sense. And arguably, the heart of the economy is as long as you keep your ticket prices in check and all that, people will go to the show. And so, therefore, we will be there to keep security,
Right.
things safe at the show.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened and everything changed.
And the world got
and
shut
it went to it went to literally zero for us. Like I'll never forget, by March 13th, 2020, everything it was like the flight delay board in planes, trains, and automobiles when everything goes red.
Yeah.
And you go, oh my God. And you look at your monthly G&A and your burn and you go, oh my God, I've got weeks
Yeah.
to figure this out. And at the time it was really challenging. It put a lot of strain on relationships at the time navigating that. But I was focused on, okay, either we have a choice. We shut down, we turtle, and we just cut our losses today because, I'm hearing this is going to be around a while. Don't listen. It's a year plus, and good advice there. Or we take advantage of every opportunity the government is going to throw at us, which we'll never see again in our lifetime like that. And how can we position it to change the business,
Right.
so this doesn't happen again? And that was the approach that we took, and it costs money, and we're paying for it still, right?
Wow.
And so it's easy to look at growth and numbers and 900 staff and all that, but when you have this black swan event that depletes every dollar you've saved over the years, because the approach was we're going to go for it, we're going to rebuild the business, we're going to diversify our services, we're going to apply the things we've learned in entertainment to all the quote traditional security markets.
Yeah.
Take the same de-escalation, the same white glove approach, but we may as well be a startup, and we may as well be starting up in the hole. Right?
Yes.
That basically, if you and I said, let's go start a security company, but we're going to start with, 6-figure debt and
And target new industries.
yeah, new
Yeah.
industry and no relationships.
Yeah.
Sounds great, right? That's what it was.
Yeah.
And so that takes a minute to undo, but it also has it's just created the most incredible team that uh, is willing to tackle those kinds of problems,
Yeah.
and help get the company through that. So it's a testament to the people that saw that and went, I'm in.
Yep.
That's the only way. That's the only way you get through it, is having people around you that are like, I'm in, I'll help.
Well, and COVID either made your team stronger or broke teams apart, quite
Yeah.
frankly, right? And I mean, I remember the same thing. I mean, I know coaching organizations like mine, that do the trainings and do the workshops and all those things that were out of business overnight. They lost all their clients, right? And I remember, looking at my team and going, okay, well, what we have to do is just have to be better and different. And I can honestly say that during that time period, probably even now, we do virtual better than anybody, right? Like including green screens and multiple cameras and lights and laptops and switches and at the
Yeah.
time we were running it off my pool table. People didn't even know that. We were running it off my pool table in my basement at the time when we tried to figure it out. Right.
Totally.
But people would say, you know what? It's like you were in the room with us. And we couldn't have afforded to do this because we would have to fly everybody in.
Totally.
Right. And yet other coaches and coaching and consulting organizations were out of business literally almost overnight.
And that's it. It's adapt or die, right?
Absolutely.
And we built it into our mantra. It's our three uniques. Our tag is plan, adapt, and smile.
Yeah.
You got to plan. Like if you fail to
do.
plan, you plan to fail.
Totally.
But you got to plan to adapt. It's literally never going to go to plan.
Well,
So
I
just
always say if you don't have a plan, you're guaranteed to hit it because you don't have one. So what are you hitting? You don't even know what you're hitting, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And so, you got to adapt. If we can always be, nimble and be in an athletic stance, then we'll tackle the problems as they come, and they'll continue to come. They'll never go away.
So I've got a kind of a standard question I like to ask everybody as we get close to wrapping up here. And, it's really my belief that personal development and professional development are really one and the same. So what's one of your favorite self-development books or tools that you can recommend to our listeners that's helped you along the way?
Self-development books or tools.
Or podcasts or, other than this one, this is a great podcast, but you know what I mean? Like there's been some learnings and some education you've had to take, and what's a good tool?
Honestly, a good tool, this is going to sound like a cop-out, but putting the effort into finding, a counselor, like a therapist I gelled with, not because I was feeling like I had problems to solve. I think we all have our stuff, right?
Of course.
So for me, I took the approach of like, I'm looking for help with just maintenance, the oil changes, and the physiotherapy for the mind.
Yeah.
And with that approach, it took a while to find someone that I think got what I was looking for in that regard. But I think that was life-changing for me, was having some perspective on kind of looking at myself and trying to get a trusted, neutral, trained second opinion on my own judgments of myself, right? Because I think it's very hard to find. I've yet to find. That's why I don't have an answer of a book. I don't have a book that stands out that's changed my life in that regard.
But you have a human.
But I have a human that's really been helpful, right? And I have a partner at home, that is cares and is patient and is willing to go through this journey of me trying to explore my mind with me, and be patient with that is part of the answer. But yeah, I think that, like, and throughout my life and my career, my favorite saying, and I got to say it because I say it all the time, and it must drive my staff crazy, but I love air travel, and in all of my years doing shows, I've been lucky to fly a lot, and I love the mantra of put your own mask on before assisting others. You're no good to anybody if you didn't put your mask on and you ran out of air. right?
Absolutely.
So I've just tried to really apply that thinking in, I got to prioritize. It's not being selfish. It's about self-care. It's about communication.
Yep.
Like, I got to make sure the people around me know what's going on, right? And then I'm not, just trying to be selfish and go on a hike or whatever. But it's finding time to work on myself and to have someone give me a trusted perspective and help me measure that work has been the most important.
It's interesting you say that about the word selfish, because I trained for 3 years with a former Buddhist monk, trained in Zen meditation, and I remember he called it selfing, right? Taking care of yourself,
like it.
right? Selfing.
Yeah.
It's not selfish, he said,
No.
it's selfing.
Yeah, and it's hard because it's good, and it's a hard thing for me, right? Because it impacts. There's always a demand for your time, so to carve that out, it feels really selfish.
Yes.
It like I needed, and I think that's what it is. I think that's where, that person, that therapist has helped me see that.
Yes.
That it's like, no, this is a priority. It's like,
It's your oxygen.
you're doing the right thing here. Keep doing that. Don't go crazy, but make sure you allocate time for that.
It's your oxygen mask.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So it's been life-changing for sure.
Awesome. Well, I could go on for another
Yeah,
hour
me
talking
too.
to
Yeah,
you.
it's been
This
fun.
has been
Yeah,
great.
appreciate
So, again, we've been chatting with Chris Kerr. He's the founder and the president of XA Security. You've probably bumped into his team somewhere if you've been at any kind of an event in this city, which pretty much everybody has. And so, first of all, thanks for keeping everybody safe, and really looking out for the people at these events so that people can enjoy it and have a good time and know that they're safe, they're going to get home safely. And thanks for joining me today.
Well, thanks so much. We love what we do, and I appreciate being here. Appreciate
Excellent.
the chat.
I'm sure we'll chat again at some point. Thanks,
Sure.
Chris.
Take care.
Take care.